Lurking in the shadows of Victoria's electoral system is the little-known Glenn Druery. And Druery, it seems, is a political kingmaker, and for just $55,000, he claims to be able to manufacture candidates' preference deals that he sells as almost ensuring them victory. It's a grubby practice that diminishes the integrity of Victoria's electoral system, with the appearance that candidates running for the upper house can buy their seat for the right price. Join us to discuss what is the practice and the implications it has of the Informer's John Heron. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Michael.
Now, let's clear this up. To start with, John, you were running in the upper house for Darren Hinch Justice Party. What happened there?
So as the election approached, I'd asked, are there any how to vote cards, and then was told that there was none. So then I had a discussion with my running mate, Tanya Maxwell, about what's going on, and then was told that a deal had been done unbeknownst to her, and we still don't know who, but it must have been someone in the Justice Party, to preference other parties ahead of us. So basically, this is in Northern Victoria, there's like two upper house legislative councils seats up for grabs, and the preferences would fall to the Animal Justice Party and the Liberal Democrats. So, and Tanya did the numbers. You have to be very cluey to sit down and work out. It's a combination of two things here. So in Victoria is the only state in Australia that still allows the group voting tickets, and then there's the way that the preferences fall in quotas. So how they count back. So quotas exist for other parties, but what's happened here is that some deal has been done to preference away from your own party. Probably the worst thing of that is that anyone that votes for me, if they vote, and this is if they vote above the line, so above, and then 92% of people in Victoria vote above the line. So if they vote for me, it's likely their vote, well, no, it's almost certain their vote will end up with the Animal Justice Party, who, for want of a better term, has nothing to do with justice or victims of crime.
And this is the Darren Hinch Justice Party that runs on integrity and
that's
justice. Right. And they've basically said, no, vote for John, knowing full well that vote is most likely going to go to the Animal Justice Party.
Well, we don't know. We've not been told anything. We have no idea. And as I said, there's no one out on the campaign trail now in our area. In Northern Victoria is about a third of the state, geographically. No how to vote cards are printed. Nothing. No advertising. So some deal has been done here. And this is the thing, right? Nobody knows what deal would be done. And this is not just me. It's not just the Hinch Justice Party. But as been revealed last week with the preference whisperer, as he's called, Druery, this is widespread. And it's in all of those upper house areas. So it's not isolated, and you can see, you're right, but my understanding the price was $50,000 last election. It's gone up to 55.
GST.
So lucrative business. So, and you saw that release in the newspaper if you listen to that video. So basically, Northern Victoria, Druery pocket $100,000. Now, what is there? Eight up house areas, I think. And if that happens in every one, do the multiples. There's almost $1 million he's made. Right? But, and then the other, how many votes do you need to get in this roundabout preference deal? So if you look at the last election and you've got the Animal Justice Party with Medic, he got in by 2,500 votes. So in effect, $50,000, 2,500 votes, and you got a seat in Parliament.
Yeah, and we also saw Rod Barton get in on extreme. I think Rod was the lowest with, I think it was less than 1% of the vote got him in, held a lot of power. I think Andy Medics was just over 1%, so the next one up. And I think in the last election, reporting has it that Glenn Druery's clients, he had 11 clients in that election and 8 of them gained seats in the upper house.
Well, it's not just, we know what's going on here. Well, we have known, but to the extent that it goes on, and how far and how deep and how wide it goes. We've also heard revelations that some of the parties, my understanding from what I'm told is that Sack Daniel Andrews' party is an invention by the ALP. It looks increasingly likely that the Animal Justice Party was also at least controlled and run by them. In my local electorate, a staffer of Mary-Ann Thomas, the health minister, conveniently resigned to run as the Animal Justice Party candidate here. I've seen the Labor Party do that before, but as I said, we've got a authoritarian regime in power now that will do anything to suppress democracy. So what you've got here is the generation of political parties, fake dummy political parties, fake dummy candidates, buying of votes, installing people on a minimum quota. Now, if the UN was monitoring election in Zimbabwe along these lines, they'd cancel the election.
Yeah. Now, we need to be careful here as well. So this can only happen in the upper house.
Yes.
Where the group voting tickets exist. One of the biggest questions or accusations, or however you want to frame it, I've had is, who am I going to give my votes to? In the lower house, we cannot give somebody's votes to anyone. So the way it works is put me at number one if you're so inclined, but then you number each box from most liked to least liked. And that is where your vote must go. The how to vote cards, they have to, if it's a graphical representation of a how to vote card that they hand out, every box must be numbered. So they say if you leave them blank, that it may mislead and people might just go and go, oh, I'll put number one next to Michael's name and then I voted for Michael. That would make your vote informal and it wouldn't count. So that's why they're numbered. But we need to make it clear to our viewers and listeners and all of the people around Victoria that you control your preferences. If you vote below the line for the upper house and number at least 5 boxes, but if you just go in and put a number one next to a party at the top of the line, your vote is for them to do with what they want. Your vote is for them to use to their advantage. So number below the lines, and this practice goes away. Am I right there, John?
Yeah, that's right. So it is the upper house only. But again, like you mentioned, voting above the line gives a vote to that party. 92% vote that way. Now, in Victoria in the last 4 years, we've seen, for example, with the pandemic legislation, emergency powers, we've seen that pass the upper house in Victoria where it has to go for approval by often 1 vote or 2 votes. So this is not an inconsequential outcome here. So basically, you can have a handful, like handful of 5 candidates of these people controlling the upper house. Collectively, if you added up their votes, it might be 30,000 votes, 20,000 votes of 5 candidates. So now the way that preference might work, and the other thing is a quota. You know how they come down. So actually, a disadvantaged party is the Greens. So that quota comes in it kicks in at 10%. So they only get 1 candidate in. They might have had a swathe more votes than these come by nighters, but they lose out as well. But those people have a controlling interest of Parliament, right? It's nothing short of a coup, a paid coup, where you've got the balance of power by 20,000 votes that a man or unknown people have put these deals together. I keep saying it's as much as what we don't know that we do know. The revelations by the Herald Sun and other media outlets last week revealed the whole. I knew about the 50,000 and the buying of preferences and the stacking, but all the other thing, the dummy parties, as I've said, you know, that now who put these deals together? Nobody knows. Right? Is it in a central point of control? We don't know. Is one party, is the ALP paying these people? We don't know. You know, probably there's just so many unknowns. And Andrew's response when he was asked by the media was, I don't personally know, you know, I've never met him. Well, of course not. No, Stalin got his commissars to carry out orders and meet the plebs. That's the response. It's not like, oh, we should get rid of it, because legislation was drafted and put up to get rid of this group voting ticket. But lo and behold, people of this ilk will do anything to maintain power, anything.
Yeah, there was a call for a review. I think the Greens were actually quite vocal about a review before the election, and it was put off and put off. And now Andrews has announced, well, we'll have a inquiry into it. I won't comment about it. Let's let the inquiry do its job. So standard operating practice for the Andrews government. Now, what about these minor parties in lower seats in the lower house, John? Why are they there, do you think?
I think, well, like you're one of them. You're trying to make a difference in a very, very localized campaign and area, and that's great. So there's a lot of interest there. I've got a lot of people that I know that have come out as candidates because they wanted to put advocacy, and all power to them. That's in the lower house, right? None of these deals or paying. They're trying to get their issues out there, and some of them might get 2, 4, 5% of the vote, and that's great. I think that's wonderful. But that in a situation where you've got preferential voting, their votes mean nothing, because it's just going to be really a 2-horse race with the Greens coming up in a handful of seats. So what Australia really needs to have a complete overhaul of its democratic system. We need to be in step with the civilized countries throughout Asia and Europe and South America with proportional voting. New Zealand had the courage to do that in the 1990s. And having compulsory voting doesn't help, because that just entrenches apathy amongst voters. You and I see that at the polling stations, where half the people don't know what they're doing, and how can that be a good thing if they're not vested in the political system, but they're forced to vote? Okay, so we really need an overhaul of that system. The fact that what we've seen in the last 2 weeks in Victoria, what you can get away with, we can buy seats, create dummy parties, all these types of things. Are the people not had enough? And this is our problem. Are we our own worst enemy by allowing this to happen?
Yeah, I think in this election, they're saying that in the lower house, 129 independent candidates, so candidates not affiliated with any party, local people who are committed and accountable to their communities and not beholden or constrained by a party political line. We need to be careful. Some of them may be there to soak up some of the, a pox on both their houses. I can't vote for either major, so I'm going to vote for an independent. Preferences will matter, and they'll flow that way. But these independents are in no way. There's no independent upper house that's been implicated in this. So don't put a pox on me as an independent. Is what I'm trying to say. But this is just ridiculous. This can happen. Every other jurisdiction in Australia has gotten rid of this, and it all seems to be working well.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, and the way of preferential voting, again, you do waste your vote. It can be counted out. Like, again, if you're pick any European country, Sweden, Germany, to a lesser degree France, if 5% of the people vote for a certain group, depending how it is, they will get that representation. If you're in the New Zealand system, which is sort of like Germany and Israel, you get 2 votes. You get a vote for the party, and you also get a proportional vote for your local member. And actually in New Zealand, a quarter of the people don't vote for the party and that particular local member. They will vote individually for someone like you. So they might hypothetically tick New Zealand Labor in one box, and then they tick Michael Ray because they like him as a local guy, and you may get in on that. Okay, so that shows localized proportional voting, voluntary. Nothing wrong with that. New Zealand can have voluntary voting. What's the reason that it's so vehemently opposed is by an entrenched 2-party duopoly that's effectively ruled the country since its establishment in Australia. So that can't be good. Every other country reforms its political systems. We've had zero. Well, there have been reforms, as an example, getting rid of group voting tickets, but guess where it's the same as it was 100 odd years ago? Victoria.
In a state that's had one party in power for, what was it, 19 of the last 23 years.
23. Yeah, and that, look, there's no doubt Andrews and his regime and cronies, they will do anything to maintain power, right? Now, what's the next step of that? If Andrews already during the pandemic says, well, you gave me a huge mandate at the last election, I can do what I want. That was his words. Now, what happens now, right? If he has another term in here, but it might be that he might get his regime might get let's say hypothetically a 5% swing against him, but with these preference deals in the upper house, he's safely assured by creation of all these, who knows, dummy parties, who knows behind them, but he could actually increase his control of the upper house, but get diminished lower house.
Again, just to be clear, if you didn't hear at the beginning, the Sackdown Andrews party was set up by a Labor staffer.
Yeah.
So people who look at the name, great, yeah, I want to sack Dan Andrews. Your vote's going to flow back to make sure that the bloke you wanted to sack is in. Now, there's a lot of other things that I've found. My first time running as a political candidate at the polling booths, independents, we can have one A-frame. Majors can have two. Why?
Well, there's that, and you find Labor Party party hacks running around like ripping your signs down. The childish behaviour, but there's a nasty intent behind that, and like the limitations on funding in Victoria that Andrew's put in that caps you out. So we can't afford newspaper advertisements, these types of things. All of that. Those army of red shirts that you've seen them invade every polling booth in an aggressive manner. Who pays for them, Michael? We do.
Yep. They
get that money refunded from the state and the election process because they get over their 4% vote. So the sky's the limit. To a lesser degree, that was the same. Clive Palmer worked that out. And if he got over 4%, I think I worked out he might have spent 20 million on his campaign, but he got 15 million back from the taxpayers. But the independents don't get that. Right? They can't be heard. How could you ever have a grassroots movement if you're completely limited and trashed with funding, volunteers, advertisements, as you've said, like the flyers? How do you get a message out there?
Yeah. You can't. Well, John, it's sadly disappointing running as an independent. It's very eye-opening, but would I do it again? 100%. I've got a head that seems to invite abuse, and it's definitely.
I'm not up for it again with this. Like I had dinner tonight with my spouse, right? And she said, "Oh, I can admit this." You said, "Oh, I did early voting today," and I said to her, "You didn't vote for me, did you?" Because the vote wouldn't go. She goes, "Oh, you didn't tell me the full story, right?" And then I said, "Did you vote up or below the line?" And she said, "Below the line." I said, "Okay, well, whoever your preference that vote will go there." But my spouse doesn't know that. And well, as I said, the most disappointing thing for me that a lot of people that are victims of crime, etc., put their faith in me doing it. That's why I put my hand up. And I haven't got the heart to tell half of them that if you vote for me, you vote for Medic's party, which voted for every victims of crime initiative against it in Parliament the last 4 years. So you're not helping victims, you're hurting them. Now, in a democratic process, you put a vote for the purple party, but the brown party gets it. We're in real trouble.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave it there on that cheery note. So, John, thanks so much, and hopefully I'm going to see you at my polling booth doing the.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of hours.
Beautiful. Legend, John. All right. Okay. Thanks for your time, John.
See you, Michael.